Learning is so uncomfortable. I think it's always been uncomfortable, but as adults, we are really uncomfortable being uncomfortable. There's a great quote from our podcast friend, Melissa Shanahan, that says, "Discomfort is the currency of your dreams." I think the actual quote's from Brooke Costello. And it's true, isn't it? In order to pursue our dreams, we have to learn and grow. And in order to learn and grow, we have to get better at being uncomfortable. Our fixed mindset, that mindset that keeps us focused on comfort and things we already know, it keeps us stuck. And today, Pamela and I are exploring this important shift from fixed to growth mindset as part of our Mindset Shift series. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to the Grounding and Growing Leadership Podcast, where everyone is a leader and leadership starts with you. I'm Tara.
And I'm Pamela.
Thank you for listening and inviting us along on your leadership journey. We get to have an exciting conversation today.
This is such an important topic. And I know if I don't identify this, I can get really stuck. And I've seen that with other people. And so I'm going to let you help continue us on our series.
Yeah. So we're continuing in the Mindset Shift series. And something I think everyone should know is one of the reasons we do these podcast topics is to reinforce the learning for ourselves. So yes. It's to help inform and maybe bring some good content to all of you, but also because these are things that we continue to learn, wrestle with, and develop in ourselves. And from a transparency and authenticity standpoint, all three of these mindsets have been things that we have struggled with at different points in our careers, in our lives, in our weeks, yesterday.
Yeah. And no one's arrived. And I think if anyone who does a podcast comes on and just says, I have nothing more to learn, or I'm perfect in this area, you may want to consider whether you actually continue listening to them, because all of us are human and we always are faced with areas where it's like, oh, and now I get to go do some of this work myself.
Yeah, I don't consider myself much of an expert in any area because there's always so much more to learn. And that's really the point of this today. So the first one was shifting from victim and out of survival mode into thriving. The next one was shifting from scarcity to abundance. And today we're going to talk about shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And I think my son perfectly demonstrated something yesterday about this. He's in kindergarten. He is really smart and creative. And we were in Montessori. The first 2 years of his preschool time was Montessori, and they don't focus much on letters. They focus on numbers. And then the third year, which we're doing in kindergarten, is focusing on letters. And so he's a little behind. And so as parents, of course, we're like, whoops, that's something we could have helped him with. So we're practicing the alphabet. And yesterday we were doing some flashcards. And when he would get one wrong, he would just burst into tears. And he said, it's too hard. I can't do it. And what's interesting is I know because I've raised another child and because almost everyone who's in the school system eventually learns it and can read at some point, can learn these things, right? We know that these things can be learned and we know that they have to just get through these hard pieces. But I think the part that we can all relate to is the crying, whether outside or inside, when we're learning something new, to say, it's too hard. I can't do it.
Oh, yeah. And as adults, we may not cry and show a fit, but we can go into our own shame script, which is, I want to master this new thing that I'm learning immediately. And if I can't master it immediately, then it's not worth doing. And I'm going to make up excuses and all of it. But of course, underneath shame is the fear. It's a secondary emotion to fear. And what is this saying about me that I can't master this right away? And I just want to say, whoever masters anything right away, and we keep saying leadership is a practice, but the fixed mindset, I love that starts with the letter F. A lot of powerful words start with that letter. And I'm going to say fear being one of them.
Which words, Pamela?
Fear. I'm just going to say fear. Yes, with fear being one of them. And in that fixed mindset, it is so fear-driven often that literally puts us in a prison, I find. And it's a prison of our own making. We can have a fear of a people group. We can have a fear of learning certain things. We can have a fear of of a language that we don't speak, or a food we haven't tried, of a new skill that we're trying to learn. Like, all of those things can be lumped into that fixed mindset. And it's just honestly because we've never set out to practice and learn. And the opposite is the growth mindset.
Yeah, the growth mindset, which keeps us open and keeps us open to learning. So my word this year, I've been really open on the podcast. My word has been student, and that's been to keep me keyed into this concept of growth mindset, of plasticity, of recognizing that I'm not there yet and there's more to know, there's more to learn, and staying humble in that process. But I have to tell you, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, student is uncomfortable, and from all different aspects. So we can be wide-eyed and come into something and be really excited to learn a new thing until we start it and start to potentially feel the pain of what we don't know. We could feel it in the shock of that we can't get it the first time, or we could really literally feel it in our body that, wow, there's a lot more to learn here than what I thought. When was the last time that you experienced that in your student process this year?
I could probably come up with a lot. There's a really great Ted Lasso quote, if for those of you who are Ted Lasso fans, but Ted Lasso at some point says, taking on a challenge is a lot like riding a horse, isn't it? If you're comfortable while you're doing it, you're probably doing it wrong. And I have found that to be so painfully true. If it's comfortable, you're probably not growing. So I will come back to I'm not avoiding your question, Pamela. I'll come back to what I'm learning, but I want to talk a little bit about the zone that we're in. So we have a comfort zone. And if you actually take and draw a circle on a piece of paper, you've got an area of a comfort zone. This is where these are things that you're comfortable with. These are things that you are fairly confident you can do well. I know how to do these things, and I'm not going to be too uncomfortable trying, right? Yeah. And then you draw another circle around it. And on the outside, the way outside, that's panic zone. That's, shoot, I am in danger. This is so uncomfortable. I can't function. I'm in fight or flight. Yeah. Fear has now triggered the amygdala, and I'm in fight or flight. The sweet spot of learning is in between. So if you look at the space in between those two circles, that's the learning zone. That's where we have an opportunity, but we have to push beyond our comfort. We have to get out of the comfort zone to learn. And we have to know how far to push ourselves so that we don't end up in panic zone.
Oh, yeah. Taking one step into the learning zone. Because even as I'm in my head picturing your circle, I'm picturing bullseye, which means perfection for me. So getting into the middle of a learning zone, which is a bullseye, and hitting that every time. And of course, I'm going to want to hit that perfect bullseye if I'm going into something that I'm learning. As I'm going to go back to my question, because I'm really good at not having us avoid things. As you've taken one step into the learning zone, what did you notice showing up for yourself?
Yeah. I think the hard thing is staying with things when they're uncomfortable too long.
Yeah.
I think at a certain point, we expect it to be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But when we're learning something that's really hard for us, for whatever reason, we have to stay in that learning zone, and it takes more energy and it takes longer. And the place that I've had to stay the last couple of years, honestly, I've been open. I went back to therapy a few years ago to learn how to feel my feelings. And that has been one of the most uncomfortable journeys I've been on. And it has not all been fun. Worthwhile, sure.
Yeah.
But really uncomfortable. The feeling that evokes for me, because I don't know how to feel my hard feelings, is anger.
Yeah. And anger is, first of all, on the feeling side of things, when we start to feel them, a lot of times that moves us just into a place of grief. We're not going to land here during this whole podcast, but anger is a stage of grief. But anger is also a way to deflect from feelings, which can go into excuses and not taking responsibility and all that kind of thing. Not saying that's what you're doing, but just as people can identify with that just sense of anger and the frustration. But also those feelings often come when we're feeling them because something hard has happened to us. And a lot of times we don't sit with it long enough to identify that something has been hard. And so that anger can come from a sense of either we've robbed ourselves because we didn't own something, or because someone else robbed us of an opportunity, or like literally something that shouldn't have ended that way. And anger can show up.
Yeah. I remember I'd been doing that work for about 6 months in therapy. And about 6 months in, I told her, because she had told me at the beginning of that journey, because I was also having trouble experiencing joy. And I knew logically why, but my therapist told me, if you can't experience the hard, sad, if you can't process those emotions, you also can't access joy and feel those emotions. And that was my ticket. That was why I was doing it. It wasn't because I really wanted to feel the hard, sad emotions. I just wanted to feel joyful, more joyful. And so about 6 months in, I literally yelled at my therapist. I'm like, this is hard. I'm not feeling joyful. When another powerful F word,
There you go.
is this part going to be done where I like feel these feelings and it's done? She's, no, that's not how that works. You're not just done. The point isn't to not feel those things. I'm like, back up, what? Like the point of this is to not feel sad. I'm like, then I need to reevaluate why I'm here, because it's stupid.
But on the other side now, because I want to have you encourage people who are thinking about going to therapy. I want to say that I have experienced deep joy from you, or I'm going to say with you.
Yeah.
So how has that unlocked it for you?
Hi, everyone. We're taking a quick break from the podcast because I want to do something without Pamela, just to brag on her a little bit, because she's not really great at that for herself. You all know and love Pamela. She is a phenomenal coach, counselor, mentor, pastor, and she added another title this year, and she's become an author. And the coolest part is not only will these books bless you, they make phenomenal gifts. In fact, they're perfect for gifting. She's written 2 books that I want to tell you about. One is called Make Good Choices. It's a children's book, but you know the children's books that you read, but as an adult you're thinking, oh, that's really for me. It's a great story from a mentor to a mentee, talking about ways to stay true to ourselves and to make good choices. And we know that you're going to be blessed by the story in reading it to anyone else and gifting it to anyone else. The other book that she's written is a soul care, faith-based journal called Linger in His Presence. And it is about daily reflection and really takes us deeper to connect with our maker. And I really think you're going to love this journal as well. She also has a men's version and a teen version of this journal. So we hope that you will consider looking these up on Amazon, thinking about them as you're thinking about meaningful gifts to give this season. You can go to Amazon or find the links in the show notes. And now back to the podcast. Yeah, I would say we're a couple years in and I saw progress along the way. So I'm not exaggerating that moment for myself, but I don't want people to think that I lived there very long. I was just having a hard month, but I have seen progress along the way, and it was baby steps. Like something happened with one of my kids, and instead of going straight into action, which is my go-to, I let myself go sit in my chair and cry for 10, 15 minutes. And that was progress for me. Like I recognized I am feeling sad about this.
Yeah.
Because my survival technique has been to go straight into what can I do about this?
Yeah.
And so I allowed myself to sit in it. And I recognized I literally was walking down my stairs to my office to do the things, stopped myself, went back upstairs, sat in a chair and cried, and recognized even in the moment, oh, this is part of progress.
Yeah.
And I actually then, when I came back to have to do the things, did different things and didn't maybe have as much heat going into that.
When you can see that, it's so powerful to say this work is really worth it. I want to also say that we want to honor that there are times when we get to choose to learn something hard and go into growth mindset. And then there are things that just get forced on us.
Yeah.
And we're forced to be in a place where we either grow and learn this new season of life, because it all of a sudden happened. And that can be from a fracture in a relationship to a health challenge that comes to what we experienced in COVID a couple of years ago. Like we can either choose to be in blame or to be a victim or to just shrink back. And oftentimes when something hard like that all of a sudden comes upon us, we will experience a big T or a little t trauma response that has us operating out of survival. But I'm saying coming out of that, then we either choose to say, okay, what is this situation going to grow in me? How am I going to thrive in it? Or will it completely shut us down? And I'm going to say for my circle that I had to step into this last couple of years was really something more that was forced on me. And I had to decide if I was going to thrive in stepping into this growth circle of caregiving for myself. Am I going to thrive? Is the person I'm caregiving for going to thrive in this space? So much to learn about medical care, about living with someone who is in fear, about walking into how do I continue to thrive in my life and the things that I've been invited into. Can I grow in this space? And everybody's at different levels for that. And I will say that I've really ebbed and flowed to understanding what I needed, what the person I'm caring for has needed, what the situation has called for, and how to ask for help from people, which I think is also a place of having a growth mindset, is that we recognize we cannot do it alone. A fixed mindset says that I need to be a superhero. I don't have any needs. I shut my needs down to help to care for the other person. And we cannot sustain that. I also just want to say what has been humbling and what I have had to allow myself to do is to allow people like you, Tara, to speak into my life, to really help me do a check-in with myself of how are you doing in this space of either you grow into this new season or you blame and you become a victim and the world is your enemy rather than your opportunity. And so I've constantly had to give myself grace as I navigate the new challenges that come all of the time and to put in front of me because I also operate from a foundation of faith to really say that as I do this caregiving, as I have this opportunity, I do it as an invitation as unto the person that I ultimately serve. And for me, that's God. And so while I physically care for a person, every act that I'm doing is as unto an invitation from God. And then I experience the joy. When it's a have to, I experience exhaustion and fear. But when it's an invitation and a get to, I experience the joy.
It's a choice. And the beauty is, as we step into that learning circle that's uncomfortable and hard, we're learning. Over time, our comfort zone expands.
Yeah, totally.
And so over time, that inner circle that used to be smaller is now larger. And then we are invited to take another step into the learning zone. So I don't think this is not a static process, right? The only thing that's constant is it's a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, I've learned and grown. And now am I ready to take the next step in learning?
Absolutely.
Or am I done with this journey and I'm going to move on and learn something else?
When you realize how far you've come, like yourself, and even for myself, it's amazing the things that you can conquer and transferring this over into our small businesses, our bigger businesses, the podcast listeners who are coming to us who are facing an economic challenge in their business or a shift in the way everything is run or an employee who all of a sudden decides to leave a key position. It's all right. I'm stepping into this place of uncomfortableness, which is going to invite me into something, whether I want it to or not. But how can we, Tara, encourage are there some key indicators for steps as we're walking into this for people in the business realm?
Yeah, all of the reasons you just mentioned might be an area, or maybe just there's a lot of change in your business. And as a team, you're expected to learn something new. There's a new system, there's an upgrade, there's a workflow process that had to change. Someone moved your cheese. You have to figure out a new way to get to the cheese.
Yeah.
It can be exhausting, as you said, if it feels like it's happening to you. I think choosing for yourself, like I'm going to choose to make the most of this opportunity and see what I can learn in it and almost gamify it for yourself, I think is powerful. I'm not alone in this boat. Other people are learning too. That's typically true if you're learning something new, and identify the lies that you're telling yourself about the process. One of the things my son, because we were working on the alphabet yesterday, he said was, "There's a kid in my class who already knows how to read, Mom." And I said, "Wow, good for them. That's amazing. You are going to get to learn that too."
Mhm.
And then just think, you have these new Pokemon cards, and then you're going to be able to read them by yourself. You won't even need to ask me what's on them.
Mm.
And just shifting to what he gets to do,
Mhm.
shifting like you get this opportunity to learn these things.
Hmm.
It's hard, but what is this going to bring you on the other side of it? And I think sometimes we're so busy holding on to what we're losing in the change,
Yeah.
in this growth, and in the new thing we have to learn. And sometimes the little thing we're losing is comfort. A lot
I
of
would
times that is we're
So I was
losing.
gonna say, we absolutely are. And in a skill that we're learning, or a shift in time where we spend our time, or a new employee that we have to learn to work with, all of those things, they're relational. They talk about tasks, but oftentimes when we're in a fixed mindset, we're worried that if we don't master this right away, it says something more about who we are.
Mm-hmm. We've decided that's part of our identity.
Yeah, and that's where the fear comes in. And then we've already given the power over to the skill, and it's
Mhm.
just a skill. Why does a skill get power? The skill gets no power. Or even the way that somebody validates us or doesn't validate, that is not who we are. And so it's really important that we differentiate in this growth mindset. This doesn't say anything about the who of who I am. It will identify some fears rising up within us along the way, which invites us into growth, may invite us into therapy.
Yeah, if you notice you're really uncomfortable, I think there probably is a fear that's playing in the background that it would be helpful to pause. There's a really great new book by Adam Grant called Hidden Potential that I am only halfway through, but it's rocking my world. There's some things that's really helping me rethink, which ironically is the name of his previous book, Rethink. He says in the book pretty early that the number one indicator of whether or not you can learn something is your ability to remain in that discomfort.
Yes.
It's not about talent necessarily. Some people pick something up faster than another, sure.
Yeah.
But he's got hundreds of examples of people who are really extraordinary at something and they sucked at it when
Yeah.
they started.
Yeah. I would have to say it's just the things that I have conquered in my life. It's just because I decided not to give up.
Yeah,
And some of that, there's been some things that I would say forced because of my story.
because you had to.
Because I had to. And I've just decided that if this is coming to me in my season, I am not giving up on this. And every one of us has parts of our journeys that are like that. But wow, that is such a great insight to be able to say that it truly has been about the tenacity. And the root word of tenacious is actually tension.
That's
Yeah,
good.
it's so good. And so you have to live in the tension of it, and not in a way that you snap, but that you bend and flex with what you need to as you learn something new.
Yeah. Can you think of something that you used to be really like when you started, you were really not good at it and now you're pretty good at it? Can you think of anything like that?
For all of us as coaches, I think I would get in my own way too
Mm,
often. I would think in my head, I had to help people be the best version of themselves. And if
mm,
they didn't choose that, it reflected on me.
mm.
And I have since come to learn that it would be codependency, Pamela. And this is what's helpful for us now as coaches to be able to pre-decide really who we're working with, because we do need people to come in who are also owning that part of their journey of their own growth. We interview them ahead of time to see if they're actually a good fit for working with us as coaches, as counselors, as people who are in the strength realm, that it does take buy-in by the person that
Mhm.
we're working with. So when I first started, I felt a lot more of the weight. I had to have the perfect question. I definitely was really fearful. And what I love about the work that we do and about saying leadership is a practice, that instead now I come in with open hands and curious. And
Mhm.
my word for the year has been relax, which is an interesting word for me as an activator. And I truly have seen, I have a lot of capacity, but because I've relaxed, in a lot of areas of my life this year about what I can't control, my capacity has even grown
I've seen
exponentially
it.
for what I've
It's
had.
superhuman. It's insane.
And it's because I've come in curious and I really have had this growth mindset for a lot of things. I even doing this podcast, I do all the editing for it and the publishing of it and learning the graphics of it. And then because I've learned those things, I've also published a book and some journals and really excited about a new book that will be coming out and actually out by the time this podcast comes in. And
It's
that's
really good. It's a great Christmas gift. Just a quick plug. called
well,
called Make Good Choices.
Yeah, I specifically had the opportunity to hire a company to help me with this, but I had the time to learn the hard things myself. And honestly, it has been hard. And I have failed at doing it more times than I have actually succeeded at getting the final product out there. And truly, it was just in the tenacity of sitting in the long hours of editing and getting feedback and redoing it and then getting the proof and being like, I got to do this over. And yet I'm conquering because this is going to be a part of a series of books. And I wanted to be able to learn so that I can have it in the series. And it's always about the next thing. It's never about the now. And when we stay in the growth mindset, we learn this now for the next new thing to learn. And I would be so stuck if I was in that fixed mindset. And I honestly couldn't afford to do it that way. So if I was going to grow and have anything like this, I had to stay in the tension of learning it.
It's interesting. So first of all, we will have a link to Pamela's new book in the show notes, and I'm sure we'll promote it in many ways because it's phenomenal. But also it reminds me, I was trying to think of what did I used to be really bad at that now I'm almost like people might say I'm good at. So I was just at church this last week and I do announcements once a month. And every time I do it, someone will come up to me after and say, "Oh, you do such a nice job with announcements. I could never do that. Thank you for doing that." And I always chuckle because I was in debate in high school, not because I was good at it. I'd rock it right now, 47. I'd go and crush all those high schoolers. But
you go.
But actually, that's not true. AI has changed the game with debate and it's insane. However, in high school, I joined debate because all of my friends were in debate, but I was terrible. I had a nervous cough. I turned bright red when I would speak in front of people. I couldn't really connect coherent thoughts. I was so in my head about what other people would think. It made me so nervous. And I stayed with it because it was my friend group. So I stayed uncomfortable in being bad at this thing so that I could stay connected to my friend group. And I never got better in high school. So I just want to say, like, I was in it for 4 years. I was never great. I was mediocre a couple of times at best. There were people who were phenomenal. And I was always in awe. I learned so many skills from staying in that uncomfortable place.
Wow.
My ability to both facilitate and participate in conversation at the same time is from debate. My ability to take shorthand notes that I can go back to and actually recall is because I had to learn that skill in debate.
Wow.
But mostly I got to college and I was one of the best contributors in a classroom because I learned how to be uncomfortable long enough to share what I was thinking. Now I do it for a living. I don't mind speaking in front of people because I've done it so much, but it's not because it came naturally to me. And I think someone might need to hear that. There might be something you really want to do because I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it. It's not like I was like, oh, I have no interest in that. No, I really wanted to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I was terrible. My debate coach would tell you if you went back and talked to him, you might not even remember me, but I was terrible. And I stayed uncomfortable a long time. And I think there's a lot of examples like that. If you think about your own life, where did you stay uncomfortable long enough to become good at something and then great at something because you stayed in that learning zone?
Yeah. And I think you did stay in the learning zone, even when I saw you when we worked with Buzz and we would put on events and workshops. I have seen, I'm going to say like a beautiful acceptance of self. And I think this is also where we get in our own way because I speak over myself that it's hard, or because I say to myself, I'm going to cough or I'm going to get red or all that kind of thing. I'm guessing now you don't even think about it. That's not even in your head at all, because we know that as speakers, it's really not about you. It's about the people that you're serving and supporting, and it's about what they need from you. And so you also have come to this place of getting yourself out of the way and of the perfectionism and wondering what will they think about me, because there's a lot more confidence in the message that you have that you're delivering, the people that you're delivering it to. And that's also a way of growing and getting that fear F word out of the way for yourself.
You speak to something important there, Pamela. You're right. I have continued to evolve in those skill sets. I was good sometimes when we first worked together, but not all the time, for sure. And now it's not that I never stumble. It just doesn't bother me as much. If I don't get in my head, I usually can find my place.
Yeah.
Doing this podcast has continued to grow that skill.
Yes.
Mainly because I don't want to make your life a lot harder. Because she does all the editing. But that speaks to motive. So what is your motivation to learn? So when you are looking at something where you feel stuck, it's likely that you're either holding on to a fear or to a loss, or maybe you need to let yourself grieve, or you don't have the right motivation to step into that learning circle and out of that comfort zone.
Yeah. And I'm also going to say comparison. There's a person that's already mastered that skill. There's someone that's better. There's always going to be someone who is This is Andy Stanley has a wonderful teaching on this, and he's somebody that we follow as a leader. He says, living in the land of they're richer, they're smarter, they're thinner, they're better, they're gooder. And it's living in that land of and then that just wipes out your creativity. Also, if our identity is in comparison with someone else, and this is where strengths comes back in, truly trying to master a skill like someone else or do it just like them, the value that we bring has already been negated. But if we're growing in our strength and in our identity and living with a place of gratitude to say, thank you that I get this opportunity to grow. Thank you that I've gotten the opportunity at the table. Now let me shine in myself so that I do become this strengthened version of someone that once was this, but now is this. It's so amazing.
Yeah. And I just want to say to each person listening, there has never been you. There has never been a you before.
No, we need
There has never been your strength set. So the chance of someone having the same top 5 strengths in the same order as you is 1 in 33 million. All 34 is improbable. So you, first of all, you are uniquely wired.
Yes.
We believe each person has a purpose in their life that they're called to.
Yeah.
So that you have a unique purpose and you have a unique experience. No one has experienced life the way you've experienced life. So you put those 3 things together and you are uniquely equipped for something. And sometimes it's our own fixed mindset getting in our way from what's around the corner that's possible for us to do, to achieve, to serve, because we are keeping ourselves in the comfort zone. So I just want to invite all of you to step into the learning zone with us.
Yes.
Into that growth mindset as we head into 2024, and let us know how you're growing. Let us know where your discomfort is. We want to commiserate in the misery of the discomfort and encourage you along the way.
Yes. And part of growth as we end up here means that failure is never failure unless you don't learn from it. It's just a way to learn another way to do something. Yeah. And so we are here saying that failure is not fatal. If you decide to learn from it. Failure is only failure. If that's the end, that's the fixed mindset that becomes fear that keeps you from something. We just want to invite you to continue being on this journey with us. We thank you for joining us for this podcast today. We are not done with this mindset series. We're excited to bring you the next in the mindset series, and you're going to have to stay tuned and listen as we move forward in the next in our series on mindset shifts. So thank you for being with us today. Would you please rate on the podcast platform that you listen to? And we'd also love to hear from you. If you could email us at tara@aligntransform.com, other topics that you would love to see us cover. So thanks for being with us today.